The Euangelion, Greek for good news, where we get gospel, it was used in conjunction with the end of the Civil War that started with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony and stuff. And you had Caesar Augustus has, basically ended the Civil War, has taken power, and he sends these emissaries to all these cities and cultural centers to be like, hey, the war is over, peace has come and order is restored. And that's the Euangelion. So it's about an end to war and strife and upheaval. The gospel presentation, where the word comes from, really it's presenting good news about the end of war and of strife and of upheaval. The Euangelion was not about the condition of the Roman citizens, but we now make the Euangelion about the condition of people, when it was never about that. It was about a new king, a return of peace, and the alleviation of suffering and uncertainty.
Seems like there's not a ton of action needed from the Roman citizens in that good news. It is because they're citizens of Rome. Mm-hmm. It just is. Mm-hmm. That's who their leader is.
So our gospel presentation should be about a new king, the return of peace, and the alleviation of suffering and uncertainty. My question to myself was like, how or why did the gospel begin to morph into something that was about the conditions of the citizens, when that was never the origin of the word? People feel the need to explain there's been a war in the first place. Hey, you're God's enemy. Just so you know, there is a war. So first I need to tell you there has been one. And then I can tell you the good news about how it's over. One's like, oh. People feel the need to explain. Hey, you're God's enemy. Just so you know, there is a war. So first I need to tell you there has been one. And then I can tell you the good news about how it's over. One's like, oh. But we feel like we need to explain, you're a sinner and da-da-da. Everybody knows there's a disconnection from your true belonging. Everybody knows there's a disconnection from like what feels like you were really made for, even if you don't have those words to articulate. Everybody knows that. You don't have to explain there's a war. There's an end to strife and to woe and to suffering. And people can immediately recognize, yes, that has been my condition. That has been what I have felt. But instead, we feel the need to explicitly talk about the war in very limited terms, about sin and guilt, and not like disconnection from the divine, disconnection from being truly human. And there's no need to explain that. People's subconscious and in people's bodies and in people's souls, like everybody feels that. You don't need to explain the war. You just need to explain the good news about the war. They explain it wrong anyway. And they talk about guilt and shame versus like you're disconnected from God. You're disconnected from
yourself,
being truly, from yourself, from being truly. There's all kinds of fallenness, even just like that we carry in our bodies. That's why somatic therapy has been so good for me. But like people don't need it explained to them. War. You need the good news explained because everybody has felt the war. Just like the Roman citizens all knew there was a war outside, externally. Mm-hmm. We all know there's some type of upheaval internally. We don't need it explained like the Roman citizens didn't need it explained. They needed the good news proclaimed. What we still need now is the good news proclaimed and not the war explained.